Good evening. My name is Mikhail Rostislavovich, and I am the Vice President of the Waseca Area Chamber of Commerce and the Chair of our Legislative Committee. I want to welcome you all this evening. We hope that throughout this series, this is our third debate so far, and this is our last debate, and we want you to be able to enjoy hearing from the individuals who want to win your vote in the upcoming elections. Everyone here this evening must understand what a powerful tool debate is in our republic. It allows individuals to express their thoughts and opinions, engage in thoughtful discussions, and challenge the status quo. It encourages critical thinking, fosters intellectual growth, and promotes understanding and empathy. But a debate is not a format for attacks or slander. This debate's goal is not to prove someone wrong or claim victory, but a forum to exchange ideas between the candidates and explore different perspectives. It is from the clash of opposing arguments that the voter can choose which candidate best represents their points of view and perspectives. So remember, the key to a successful debate is not to convince the opponent, but to persuade the audience to vote for you. I'm now going to go over a few of the rules that we have set as far as our format is concerned. Opening remarks and welcome will be done by each of the candidates. Your instructions are as follows. Your moderator will ask each of you multiple questions on a rotating basis. You will each have 1.5 minutes to respond. After you have answered the question proposed by the moderator, your opponent will be given 1.5 minutes for a rebuttal if needed. The questions you are being asked have been put together by the members of the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee, some of whom are seated on the stage this evening. There will be 5 questions asked this evening during the first round of questioning. After the first round, we will recess for 10 minutes. Members of our assembly were given a question card as they arrived. They're in your programs. During the recess, our ushers will collect those questions and our panel will sort through them and choose several questions for round 2. Candidates, do you have any questions? If not, Ann, it's yours.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to Waseca Votes, the Waseca City Council debates hosted by the Waseca Area Chamber of Commerce's Legislative Committee in partnership with Waseca Schools. I'm Ann Fitch and I'm honored to serve as tonight's moderator. We're excited to provide this forum where our candidates can share their visions and ideas for the future of our community. This is an opportunity for all of us to engage in the democratic process, ask important questions, and hear directly from those seeking to represent us. With the larger group of candidates tonight, we will get through as many questions as the time allotted. From the coin toss that was held earlier, Stacey Schroeder will be going first in the Ward 1 opening statements, and Nick Meister will be going first in the Ward 2 opening statements. The opening statements are 3 minutes and is an opportunity to tell everyone about yourself. Ms. Schroeder, if you could please start.
Good evening. First and foremost, I want to take an opportunity to thank all with the Waseca Votes 2024 committee, the high school, and the public that are here this evening. This is both an honor and a privilege to be here and have this opportunity for all of our candidates to speak before you. With that being said, I am Stacey Schroeder. As a dedicated mother, wife, and seasoned cosmetologist with 30 years of experience, I've embraced the value of community engagement throughout my entire life. I am a lifelong member of Waseca. My journey as a community partner and a council member of Ward 1 for the past 2 years has been incredibly fulfilling and has deepened my commitment to fostering meaningful relationships. My previous roles as a police reserve and participation on a diverse community commissions have enriched my understanding of the community's needs and aspirations. These experiences not only have allowed me to support local events, but also have equipped me with the skills necessary to collaborate effectively with a variety of stakeholders. I am driven by a genuine desire to continue building the bridges within our community. During my brief time on the council, I have had the privilege of learning the intricacies of local governance, and am more passionate than ever about all things Waseca. I firmly believe that progress is a collaborative effort, and great achievements stem from the collective input of community partners. I am committed to cultivating that environment to our shared vision of Waseca's future. Together, we can build a strong community, one relationship at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move on to Ward 2 as Mr. Jensen is not here tonight. Mr. Meister, please start.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Meister. I'm 45 years old. I was born and raised here in Waseca. Have not been on any committees or anything in the community. Been active in the construction business in and around it my whole life. I've owned my own business for 12 years. We've built a lot of things, which this community needs as well. Just want to come in for a different view on things than the traditional view, and walk that fine line to grow and build our community that hasn't happened for some time here. And I know that takes a lot, so that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Conrath.
Hi. First of all, I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this event and giving us a little forum. I'm a lifelong resident of Waseca. I'm married to my wife, Rhonda, coming up on 49 years in December. It seems like a short time, but could be a long time. We have 4 children. I've been electric lineman for the city of Waseca for 44 years and retired. I was on the Waseca Fire Department for 42 years, 35 as an officer. I'm a member of the Waseca School Board for 10 years. I've been on the Board of Directors of the Minnesota State Fire Chiefs Association for 25 years. And I'm also a member of the St. John's Lutheran Church. I'm past member of the Waseca County Fair Board. And then I was somewhat instrumental in getting the public safety building that we have in Waseca. Some of my goals are, the first one would be priority listening to the constituents, listening to Ward 2 people, what their needs and wants are, and then trying to work it out from there. Try to reduce property taxes, burdened by attracting new businesses and building more homes. Also try to retain current businesses. Assess the need for senior housing. Keep infrastructure and long-term planning going. And I feel because of involvement in the past, I bring an extensive knowledge about the city of Waseca, the operation, and the values.
Thank you so much, Mr. Conrath. For the benefit of the audience, the questions that are asked, we'll start with one ward, and then we'll go to the next ward and alternate who starts with those questions. So the first question goes to Ward 1. This would start for Mr. Jensen, but we will defer to Ms. Schroeder as he is not here. What is the role of City Council?
What is the role of City Council? So City Council, to me, bridges that gap. We listen to the constituents. We assess how to move Waseca forward. We assess how to keep the lights on, how to keep our community safe. And then we also help with give direction to city staff. City staff can't do all the work without the council directing them on which direction the community actually wants them to go.
All right. As per the debate rules, there is an opportunity for rebuttal from your opponent. Not there, so we will defer to you for your rebuttal.
I would also like to expand on that and say that the role of council is to build partnerships and relationships. The city isn't just the city alone. We are part of a bigger world. Building those relationships with our county commissioners, our state legislators, and even our federal partners is beneficial to everything. And once again, that's part of bridging those gaps and bringing things together. Without things being cohesive, the right hand knowing what the left hand needs to do, city staff also doesn't know how to move forward or what direction they need to go.
Thank you. Same question to Ward 2, and it is, what is the role of City Council? Mr. Conrath, we'll start with you.
Well, the first role would be to represent your constituents, the people that voted you into office, because that's who you're working for. And I mean, if your constituents for some reason want to have a housing development, you support the housing development. But if the majority of your constituents want to do something different, you do something different. I think sometimes too that we need to listen to city staff. And the workers they see the day-to-day operation, you know, as council people, you kind of see an overall vision where they have more hands-on, where we can solve some problems maybe just by talking to some of the workers. So.
Pardon me, Mr. Meister. A little too comfortable with a classmate there.
Working in between the public and the city, the state, that's all part of it, bringing everybody together, to bring everything together and to move forward with progress and, hear the voice. And talk to the people at the state level, community level, and our surrounding communities as well, too. That's all I have.
Mr. Conrath, you have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
The only thing I would add, not necessarily rebuttal, but is that I think there's a lot of shared services that go on now between the county and the city and the school district that maybe we could even encourage them to do more to save the taxpayers' dollars.
And Mr. Meister, your opportunity for rebuttal?
I'm good.
Okay. Our second question will come from our panelist, Braden Huff, who is a student representative.
Hi, as Ann Fitch said, my name is Braden Huff. I'm a senior here at the Waseca Junior Senior High School. My question is, City Manager Carl Sonnenberg recently presented the council with a budget that could phase out special street assessments. Are you in favor of the removal of street assessments?
And we'll start with you, Mr. Meister. So are you in favor of eliminating special street assessments?
That's a good question. I think that we have to have it to a certain point to be able to continue with the projects. I think here in the city, there's a lot of things that got pushed back for many years, and we're kind of playing catch up with infrastructure. So I think that we would have to still have that in play.
All right, Mr. Conrath.
I didn't hear the question.
Are you in favor of special street assessments? The first part was that City Manager Carl Sonnenberg recently presented at the council with a budget that could phase out special street assessments. Are you in favor of the removal of street assessments, or would you like to keep them?
That's a tough question, but it certainly needs some thought, and the possibility is there. But I think, like everything else, you got to walk at it versus run at it. But it would be neat if you didn't have your street assessment, but what about all the people in the past that have their street assessment? I mean, we certainly can't refund them. So I think we just need to take our time and go forward, and whatever we can assess, fine. If not, fine,
Mr. Meister, would you like to offer a rebuttal?
No.
Mr. Conrath, you have an opportunity for a rebuttal as well. So,
No, I'm good, thanks.
All right, very good. Same question to you, Mrs. Schroeder. Are you in favor of the removal of street assessments?
I think it always sounds good and on paper that let's remove the street assessments and put it across the board or for everyone to chime in or chip in. That's kind of what toll roads do. And we don't have toll roads here. And to change that would be a huge fundamental change for our community. And how do you balance that? How do you make sure that everybody has a chance to save for that in our levy? And how do you make sure that you're not shortchanging yourself from everyone else? I just really think that at this time, the street assessment plan that we have is what has been fair and beneficial to those who utilize the street the most. Our levy is kept lower because those street assessments are on the individual property owner instead of at the community at large. And to make that change, our levy would increase significantly for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. This would be Mr. Jensen's opportunity to answer the question. So we go back to you, Mrs. Schroeder, for any type of rebuttal.
Nothing further.
Okay. Question 3, we'll start with, would have been Mr. Jensen, but we'll start with then you, Mrs. Schroeder. How do you assess the reliability of grants as a funding source for city projects? And what strategies would you employ to ensure consistent financial support from these sources?
With most of the grants, I have come to understand that there is a certain match from the city at large. And grants aren't always a given. They're not always awarded. You have to be very proactive. You have to be ready to go after those. It takes a lot of time and research.
And we'll defer to your rebuttal as Mr. Jensen's not here.
Nothing further.
Okay. And we'll start with Mr. Conrath on this. Would you like the question repeated at all, Mr. Conrath?
Please.
Okay. How do you assess the reliability of grants as a funding source for city projects, and what strategies would you employ to ensure the consistent financial support from these sources?
Well, grant writing is very important, and being from the fire service, we got a fire truck, we got SCBA's, we got turnout gear on that aspect, and I know there's a bunch more going on, things throughout the city. But you have to have somebody in the city organization watching out for those grants. There's grants out there available as Congress changes things and does things, and for Waseca, at least in the fire service, any money we got federally for the fire service was a 90-10 match, 90 from the feds, 10 from the local. So the bigger your community, the more that changes, you end up putting in more, but grants are very vital to keeping things going.
Thank you. Mr. Meister.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. How do you assess the reliability of grants as a funding source for city projects, and what strategies would you employ to ensure consistent financial support from these sources?
Well, you have to knock on doors, right? Make the phone calls, get the relationships with the people at the state level to keep them going, bringing them in for tours if that's available, to bring them into community for us to catch up with our infrastructure so we could bring some more industry into this community, and rooftops as well to help ease the financial, the tax burden in the community.
And Mr. Conrath, your opportunity for rebuttal.
I don't really have a rebuttal, but the easy way to get some of at least the fire department's grants was we would form the language, and we'd have our secretary go over it and put it in, I'm going to call it common sense terms instead of fire terms, and that got us a long way. So majority of the time, the gals at City Hall really got the money for the fire service. So that's it.
Mr. Meister, anything to add in a rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Okay. Question number 4 will also come from one of our panelists, and we will start with Ward 2, and Mr. Meister, you will be having the first shot at this.
Hello, my name is Jay Bolfer. I'm part of the legislative committee here. Thank you again to the panelists for showing up and taking these questions from us and the public. And thank you for the public showing up today and participating. How do you gauge whether an expenditure is a cost to our taxpayers or an investment in our future?
It's very hard to hear.
Okay, no problem. How do you gauge whether an expenditure is a cost to our taxpayers or an investment in our future?
That's a good question. I mean, you have to sit down and look at the numbers and see where that's going to work out with the community. We don't need any more tax burden in the community. And it's just like anything else. You have to spend money to make money, right? So the city is similar to business. You know, you're going to have to make some investments into the city. It's just sitting down and looking at the numbers and see what works best for our community.
Mr. Conrath.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you have to weigh the risks versus the expenditures and what the value would be at the end. And sometimes that's difficult to do, but I think that's the right way to do it. So.
Mr. Meister, an opportunity for rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Mr. Conrath?
No.
Okay. We'll move on to the same question from Ward 1. Mrs. Schroeder, how do you gauge whether an expenditure is a cost to our taxpayers or an investment in our future?
Well, I think first you have to understand managing expectations, and if we are meeting those expectations of our city community. Will it benefit the levy? Will it add to the tax base? Does it align with what our community's needs are? As it's been said here tonight, it does take money to make money, and I get that. And investing in yourself or investing in our communities, like putting our own oxygen mask on first. I think many of us have flown before, and you're told that. So when you look at investing in yourself, it is better that way. Managing those expectations is also key, like I had said. And if it benefits all of us as a community, then it is an investment instead of an expenditure.
Thank you. This would be Mr. Jensen's time to answer, but we will go back to you, Mrs. Schroeder, for your rebuttal.
Nothing further.
Okay. Then we'll move on to the 5th question. And this will start with you, Mrs. Schroeder, as Mr. Jensen would have this question first. If elected, what are your 3 top priorities or most focused areas of interest?
My three top priorities. So I think first and foremost, we need to address our aging infrastructure. And while we are doing that, we need to also be able to expand that infrastructure to be shovel-ready for housing in any possible industry. All of this enhances our marketability and the ability to attract and retain families, to foster a robust workforce, and begin to entice industry to call Waseca its home. This also helps expand our tax base. All of this works together. Retaining community members and creating opportunities for Waseca to be that desirable place is my top priority.
Thank you. And you do have an opportunity for a rebuttal or an addition.
Nothing further.
Very well, thank you. This one will start with you, Mr. Conrath. If elected, what are your top three priorities or most focused areas of interest?
Working with the constituents on their goals, public safety, and lowering the tax burden of the city.
Mr. Meister.
Well, first, I think we need to work on infrastructure. That's always been a big thing here. Without that, we can't bring any other bigger industry in here that our community can serve. We've done it in the past. Housing, we need to get more areas ready for housing in this community. Everything's just kind of laid stagnant for many years. Attract businesses, keep businesses, and bring in some more industry. And as far as we need, youthful families, we need to get more younger families in this. We have a beautiful community that just kind of gets overlooked, I think, quite a bit. We have a lot to offer here, more so than even Owatonna, Mankato. And I just, we don't have enough exposure. So bringing exposure to the community to attract young families and workforce here would be my main goals.
Mr. Conrath, rebuttal or addition?
No rebuttal.
Mr. Meister? You guys have finished all 5 questions from the committee.
So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you fill out your cards, and we will send some folks around to pick those cards up, and then the panel will meet together and decide which of those questions will be asked. Thank you. We're about to resume, ladies and gentlemen, so if you could take your seats. Panelists, please take your seats as well. There's a question that I want to address immediately, and that was, why do the preferred candidates have questions prior to tonight and have time to prepare and others do not? Ms. Schroeder votes with Mayor 100%. First and foremost, nobody on this panel nor any of the candidates received anything in advance. I want to be very clear about that. As a matter of fact, these questions were put together about 5 minutes prior to us meeting at 5:30 this evening. So that question needs to be addressed, and you need to understand that the panel proposed the questions, no one was given the questions, and that's the end of that. So I'm going to start again with the continuation of the debate.
Our first audience question will be read by panelist member Larry Jensen.
Where are we starting?
Oh, you know what? We will start with Mr. Meister.
All right, councilman, council candidates, this question came from the audience. What would you do to preserve our nature in Waseca and basically to clean the lakes up? Is there a plan, or what would you do to get the lakes in shape, in order to promote families to come to town and take advantage of our nature?
Well, a couple years ago, the Lakes Association already started on that project with the county. And that's worked fantastic. We use the lake quite a bit. Our family does very, very often. And it is a 100% improvement from where it was 3 years ago. I know that they have a plan in place to keep that up as well. And then we all see the harvester in the summertime riding around the lake there too. So they just have to keep on doing what they're doing, working with the DNR. That's the biggest thing with that to keep the ball rolling on that. But the Lakes Association has done a fantastic job, and the county, of cleaning that lake up here in the last couple of years.
And Mr. Conrath.
I believe they're doing a great job with weed harvest and cleaning the lake, but if you look back about 10, 15 years ago, somehow the city and the DNR shut down the purification system that used to exist, where they pumped the water out into Michigan Slough, purified it, and pumped it back into Clear Lake. Maybe they should look at revising that.
Mr. Meister, any rebuttal?
I don't have a rebuttal to that. Thank you.
Mr. Conrath, an opportunity for rebuttal?
Nope.
All right, we'll move over to Mrs. Schroeder.
Actually, I happen to sit on our Lakes Association board as a city partner. One way that they are working on preserving is working directly with the DNR, doing some of the natural planting. You heard the other members up here tonight speak of the weed harvester. I think that weed harvester has made a difference. The Lakes Association could use more members on it, and I don't think that we should always rely on the city or the county or the DNR to do things. And I would ask, what are our citizens doing to help pick up, help clean up? It's as simple as your grass clippings. Stop putting them into the road. Stop putting them into our gutters. You can sweep them up. You can use your leaf blower to blow them out of there too. Clean up the trash. I know that with the city working on its I&I, that has given us a great opportunity to clean up the lakes. I believe that would be 8th Avenue Northeast. The storm drains that they put in have a baffling system in there to help capture some of that stuff as well. And just continuing to improve on our city infrastructure is one of the biggest things that we can continue to do to clean up those natural resources.
Thank you. This would be Mr. Jensen's time to answer. So, Mr. Schroeder, if you have a rebuttal or an addition, this is your time.
I also think our Parks Department does a really good job of keeping things clean. They're out there even on the weekends doing what it takes to clean up our parks, clean up the trails. And once again, I just firmly believe that it really starts with us as individuals. You can't always expect other people to do the work for you.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Ward 1. To attract businesses in the future, the wastewater treatment plant may need to be expanded. How can you plan for that moving forward? We'll start with you, Ms. Schroeder.
I actually had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to go tour our wastewater treatment plant. And to my knowledge, that was part of the Big Dig program for 2009. The funding of that to be paid off comes off at the end of 2029. So until then, unless we have some funding from our state legislators and our federal partners, it wouldn't be possible to do much of an expansion, if anything, right now. That is a need. We can't attract businesses that are heavy water, industrial water users or wastewater discharge at this time because of that. We are currently working with ConAgra to take on their wastewater and to make them up and running for year round. So I think first and foremost, we need to retain and work on that first.
Thank you. Without Mr. Jensen here, you do have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
Nothing further.
All right, next question will start with Ward 2. This will go to Mr. Conrath.
Well, on a normal given day, unless things have changed since I left the city 4 or 5 years ago, the treatment plant runs at less than 50% capacity. However, when we get heavy rains, then the treatment plant is inundated with the rainwater. So maybe if we focus on the infiltration into our sanitary sewer system, we wouldn't have to expand the treatment plant.
Thank you. Mr. Meister.
Pursuing grants for improvements would be one of the better ways to carry at that. And then all the projects that we've been doing the last 5-6 years to improve infrastructure in the community has also took burden off that, as far as I know as well. That's all I have on that.
Mr. Conrath, you have an opportunity for rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
And Mr. Meister, any additions?
I defer.
All right, the next question, we will start with Ward 2. This will be for you, Mr. Meister, to start. How do you plan on getting more jobs and housing in Waseca?
Well, we have to reach out there and advertise the community. We have buildings here that are available work with the state, the county, other communities, to bring other business in here. Like I had stated before, it's a town that I think is greatly overlooked. Whatever direction that we end up going in, we need to bring our people to the community before business is going to come here to fill the positions, jobs. So we have to invest, deal with or work with developers, investors, banks, so on and so forth to get things rolling here. And I think if we get developments in community within the community, I think there'll be people that will come to the community.
And Mr. Conrath, how do you plan on getting more jobs and housing in Waseca?
Well, housing, I believe there's a need for senior housing in Waseca as individual homes. I've been to a place in Farmington where it's 55 and plus, and they have all slab-on grade homes, and it's right next to a DNR property, just like Pondview is out here, and they're able to develop that area with the city at no expense to the city, other than they did their made their qualifications. And I think if we got a senior development and myself and my wife would move there, would free up our house. So you'd bring people into to that way. I think one other thing to bring more jobs is we need to promote ourselves. I don't know if anybody in the crowd's aware of it, but we have a better fire rating than Owatonna or Mankato right here in Waseca. And I think if you look at our public safety record with law enforcement, we have a better record there too. So why not promote ourselves?
Mr. Meister, you have an opportunity for rebuttal.
We have great schools. I mean, I think that's going to be a big draw too, as well. We just have to get out there and show everybody who we are. We did for a long time when Brown's, E.F. Johnson's was here, and then it just kind of slid, and we didn't jump in as a community to promote our community as good as we probably should have and could have.
And Mr. Conrath, you have an opportunity for rebuttal. All right. We would have started this with Mr. Jensen, so we'll go to Mr. Schroeder. How do you plan on bringing more jobs and housing to Waseca?
I think it comes down to the question of which comes first, the chicken or the egg. Do we need jobs? Do we need housing? Do we need housing? Do we need jobs? From some planning earlier this year with the EDA, it was brought forth to us by several business owners that who have buildings available for an industry to come in, that we don't have the housing currently to support their workforce. We need to look at what that workforce looks like and work on retention and expansion of our current businesses at the same time. The county is currently working on having a workforce training center. I think that would benefit on bringing in more jobs here. I think the fact that we have an opportunity that city-owned property to bring in housing is unique, and why not take that opportunity? It's really hard to find available land around us that are owned by farmers to give that up, and we can't force anybody to come in and build houses on that land or to build industries on that land.
Thank you. And you have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
I think we also, like I had touched on before, need to work with our current employers and work on helping them retain that local talent and seeing what we can do to help them add some jobs to help tide us over until we can attract that industry. We don't have a Daddy Warbucks that is just willing to drop his mechanical plant down here and have this workforce ready to go. And until then, supporting those industries is really going to help us get us by.
Thank you. The last question will be starting with Ward 2, and Mr. Conrath, you'll field this first. Approximately $500,000 has already been diverted from the city utility reserve funds towards the possible development of the Gator Lake area. 3 times the city has sent out requests for proposals to develop to no avail. Meanwhile, city street projects have been postponed. If you are elected, do you plan to continue to pursue this project, no matter what the cost? Why or why not?
First of all, I'd talk to all my constituents in Ward 2, and I'd vote for what they want to do with the project or not the project, not what Gary wants to do. Secondly, I believe that there's a way to bring in more income into the city, not necessarily to the utilities, but there's big companies like XL Energy and Consolidated Communications that we don't have franchise fees on. But the city of Waseca's utilities pays a franchise fee. Centerpoint Energy pays a franchise fee. So why not increase our revenue versus, our spending?
Okay, but would you vote to continue the project no matter the cost for Gator Lake?
No, I listen to my constituents.
So no. And Mr. Meister?
Well, it's an investment in the community, correct? I think we're just at a point where either we grow or we die. Obviously, would speak with the community in Ward 2. And personally, I think that it's a good idea because we have to get something going here, correct? Developers have came in. It's just not something that they're looking to do, that they're interested in at this point in time. It's kind of a jump start to get things going, and it'll bring in tax base as well. So yes, I would vote for it.
Mr. Conrath, you have an opportunity for a rebuttal.
No, thank you.
And Mr. Meister?
No.
All right. Ms. Schroeder, apologize. I should have started that question with you.
That's okay. Will you repeat it?
I absolutely will. Approximately $500,000 have already been diverted from the city utility reserve fund towards the possible development of the Gator Lake area. 3 times the city has sent out requests for proposal to develop to no avail. Meanwhile, city street projects have been postponed. If you are elected, do you plan to continue to pursue this project no matter what the cost? Why or why not?
Well, I think I've already shown that I am in favor of this development. The city was forced to purchase that land, and we have to do something with it. If we continue to leave it as farmland, it would take approximately 75 years to see the return on the investment. We've recently had our bonding advisor come in and explain to us that what we would bond for, we would see the return on our investment in approximately 6 years, and that's building 6 houses every year, 3 houses every year for 6 years, and then that would be paid for. So I don't know where else you can go and invest and see a return on your investment within 6 years. I wouldn't pull my retirement out before my retirement was mature either. So when you put things in, it's for the long-range plan and not just for the temporary plan. Why would we abandon this investment? I mean, if that money's already been invested, to take it out right now, wouldn't we be shooting ourselves in the foot? I just really don't understand why you wouldn't proceed with something that's well thought out and well planned out. And when constituents have continuously said the city needs to get it right. So in order for the city to get it right, don't you think the city should be doing it? At the end of the day, it's the city that owns those utilities and owns those streets. That's what we're doing, is moving the dirt and putting in the infrastructure.
Thank you. Without Mr. Jensen here, we move to your rebuttal.
Nothing further.
That concludes the questions that we have, and we will move to the closing statements. This is your final opportunity on this platform to persuade your voters as to who and why you are the best candidate. Each candidate will have a minute and a half, and we will start with Mr. Conrath.
Well, first again, thanks for having us here. Secondly, I'd like to do is, if I elected, to work hard for you. I've got time. I'm retired. I'd also like to do is either biweekly or at least monthly, set up a spot where people can come in, either to City Hall or the Public Safety Building, and we could sit down and talk, and they could run over their ideas, versus sometimes you get in front of the council and get a little nervous or whatever, so they could be buzzing in my ear. So, but again, I'd work hard for my constituents.
Mr. Meister.
Thanks everyone again for being here as well. We speaking with the people in the community and the ward, making relationships, knocking on doors, making phone calls, getting people from state, county, and everyone work together to grow our community. It's a double-edged sword to bring in people and to bring in business and industry. Our workforce is here. It's always been here. Our workforce has built some world leaders in different businesses such as Brown Printing, E.F. Johnson's. And I think we can get back to that at some point in time, sooner than later. But it's just going out there, working with the community and making relationships to grow our community for the long run.
Thank you. And Mrs. Schroeder.
I'm here before you tonight, not as someone who claims to have all the answers, but as a passionate advocate for our community, committed to collaborating and educating ourselves on the best path forward. Together, we are building bridges and forging partnerships that will continue to unlock vital funding and innovative programs which will ultimately move Waseca forward. Let's remember, progress doesn't happen overnight. It requires strategic planning, thoughtful dialogue, and actionable solutions. With dedication and teamwork, I firmly believe that we will witness meaningful growth within our community. It's essential to recognize that the meaning at its core is common unity. Many of us share those similar visions for Waseca's future. It's just about finding the steps we can agree on and work together to make those things happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes the debate for Wards 1 and 2 this evening. We will take a short break before we reset the stage and get ready for Ward 3.
Those of you that are new to the debate for the second half, welcome. I'm going to not read over everything that I had done earlier, but I'm going to go over points of our format for our candidates. Here are the instructions for your debate. Your moderator will ask each of you multiple questions on a rotating basis. You will each have 1 1/2 minutes to respond. After you have answered the question proposed by the moderator, your opponent will be given 1 1/2 minutes for a rebuttal if needed. The questions you are being asked have been put together by the members of the Chamber of Commerce Legislative Committee, some of whom are seated on the stage this evening. There will be 5 questions asked this evening during the first round of questioning. After the first round, we will recess for 10 minutes. Members of our assembly, you were given a question card. During the recess, our ushers will collect those questions and our panel will sort through them and choose 5 questions for round 2. Panelists and candidates, do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none. I also will reiterate the questions that have been asked on this round, again, were put together at 5:30 this evening. Nobody sitting up here as a candidate, nor did the panelists that were not at that meeting receive those questions earlier. And the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you, candidates, for attending tonight. We had a coin toss earlier. Who decide who was going to go first, their opening statements. And actually, Mr. Christensen won, but he deferred to Mr. Schlueter. So we will open up with Mr. Chad Schlueter. Your opening statement is 3 minutes, and this is to tell everyone about yourself.
Okay. Well, first off, thank you for everybody that helped facilitate this and put this together to give us a chance to speak to you guys. And thank you for the public for coming out and watching. My name is Chad Schlueter. I've been a resident here in Waseca for just over 10 years. I served in the U.S. Army for 8 years with a deployment over to Iraq in 2003. After that, I decided that I wanted to serve my community in a different style and join law enforcement. So I've been in law enforcement now for about 11 years, starting out as a community service officer to corrections officer and then to a road deputy. My wife and I have been married for about 7 years. We have 2 kids in the Waseca public school system. They're both active in their sports, hockey, football, and gymnastics. The reason that I want to serve on the city council is, you know, I've dedicated my life to public service in one way or another, and now it's time for me to serve my own community. So I look forward to, you know, being your city council member.
Thank you so much. Ms. Riecke.
First of all, thank you to everybody who has taken the time and effort to put on these debates. It's really been a great opportunity for our community to be able to come and hear what each of us that are running for the positions have to say about what we are looking forward to. I am Theresa Riecke. I have been a lifelong member of Waseca community. I did live outside of Waseca for about 10 years. I went to high school here. I went to college here. My family is here. And coming back to Waseca and making Waseca my home and knowing how great Waseca is the reason why I am running. I want to make Waseca that spot again. Growing up, the community was alive and we had businesses. Our downtown was thriving. We had families coming. And I want to see Waseca be that way again. So my top 3 things are making sure that we have those homes available for people, bringing the businesses back into our community. And to be able to do that, we need to look at our infrastructure and we need to make sure the infrastructure is there to support all that.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen.
Good evening. Just again, want to say thanks to Chamber representatives, everybody that took your time out on a great day, great evening to be here and promote our city. My name is Mark A. Christensen, and I am a long-term resident of Waseca. I say that because I was gone for a couple of years, so I don't say lifelong, but I say long-term. My wife and I have 3 children. I hold a BS in Finance and Accounting, which has been the foundation of my career. I was initially employed locally in Waseca for many years. I then later transitioned to an accounting position in Mankato, and when the opportunity arose. I've since been promoted to supply chain specialist, which is my current role, which means I'm a purchaser. So throughout my career, I've been actively involved in the Waseca community, serving on numerous boards and committees. Presently, I hold the position of treasurer for the Waseca Arts Council and a member of the Waseca Parks Board. My past roles include treasurer for Waseca Boy Scouts, Troop 85, co-secretary for the Band Boosters, and treasurer of Grace Lutheran Church. This extensive experience in budgets and finance has provided me with a deeper understanding of governmental accounting practices. My top priorities for Waseca focus on housing, industry, and quality of life. I am committed to maintaining the momentum of new housing projects, exploring possibilities for industrial growth, and expanding our quality of life opportunities. The city is actively working on affordable housing and infrastructure development, which aligns with these goals. My years of public service have contributed to many achievements. Significant projects such as ConAgra's new plant, the community pool, and the rebuild of Tink Larson Community Field have created new avenues for families to grow and thrive in Waseca. I aim to build upon these successes to further enhance our community's appeal and foster sustainable growth.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, your opening statement.
My name is Koby Wright. I am 30 years old. I've lived here for the past 15 years of my life. I am running because in the last 15 years, when I moved here, it was a bustling community, a lot of industry, a lot of businesses. I worked at the local Hy-Vee, ConAgra, Crystal Valley outside town, and now currently I lease my semi to Norseman. I've planted my roots here. I love it here. My friends and my family are here. And they're all having children, and I'm worried that they aren't going to grow up in the same community that I had and their parents had when we were growing up. We've lost large businesses, much like Brown Printing, Clear Lake Press, Itron, Corcoran's, Delta Waseca. And I want to bring back industry so that way we can flourish as a town. And that's all I have.
Thank you. We will start with our first question, and it will be to Mr. Christensen. How will you balance the need for economic growth, such as housing development around Gator Lake, with community desires to preserve green space and protect local wildlife?
Well, with Gator Lake, our part of the project is that we can only do so much development based on the DNR restrictions that were implied on us based on a lawsuit that was years ago. So green space is part of our ordinances that we have for any development anywhere that we would have so many acres or so many spaces or so many dollars to allocate for that. So even if we don't look at other things that we have, we can still move forward with these projects and have lakes, have streams and stuff like that to go forward.
Mr. Wright?
Did I hear the
Absolutely.
question? Yeah.
How will you balance the need for economic growth, such as housing development around Gator Lake, with community desires to preserve green space and protect local wildlife?
I think Gator Lake poses a very unique situation, as we could do both. We could have housing developments and we could make room for, you know, parks, nature areas, things like that, as most of that is pretty low land and not very suitable to build on. I think, yeah, I'm sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. I think that's what's most important, and I think we could get that done. It might not be. Sorry, I'm done.
That's all right. Thank you. Ms. Riecke, how would you balance the need for economic growth, such as development around Gator Lake, while preserving green space and protecting the local wildlife?
So the area around Gator Lake, as far as a housing development, as Mr. Christensen noted, is a very unique area because we do have that area with nature that we're able to utilize. Looking at other communities, how they're growing and making developments, most of them are now including a park or some type of a green space within those new developments. And I can see us doing that. We have such a wealth of nature right in our backyard. Why not take advantage of it, but yet still be able to move forward and provide housing for people so that we can grow our businesses as well?
And Mr. Schlueter?
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. How will you balance the need for economic growth, such as housing development around Gator Lake, with community desires to preserve green space and protect local wildlife?
So right now, I think that the Gator Lake project is a risk that maybe not be worth it right now for the city. I think that if we take the Gator Lake project, put it on hold for a while until we can get some other things in place, infrastructure to bring in businesses and stuff like that. We can also use Gator Lake and make it a nature preserve or use it in a way that's going to benefit the community. And right now, I think taking a risk with people's taxpayer money is just not something that is good right now.
Mr. Christensen, you're up. The first rebuttal.
Well, I disagree. I think Gator Lake needs to go forward. We've waited long enough in the sense of what it's going to cost. I can remember years ago on a project that probably cost $2 million, and now it may cost $6 million. So are we for housing or are we not? I understand the wildlife. I have wildlife in my backyard. I have deer, I have squirrels, I have everything that I can see every day that comes out of it. So we can balance it, but housing, if we've all spoke about it, and if we're all for it, we need to move Gator Lake forward, because I guarantee in 2 years when we're sitting back up here, somebody is, it will cost more than what it did even today.
Thank you. And Mr. Wright, your rebuttal.
I agree with Councilman Christensen. Nothing gets cheaper to build, and I think we definitely need the housing expansion in order to bring in business. We are very limited in our space in the city, as Gator Lake's kind of the only way to grow without buying more land or moving city limits out, which would require purchasing county roads, things like that. So I take the same stance as Mr. Christensen.
And Ms. Riecke, your rebuttal.
No further.
Mr. Schlueter, anything further?
Yes, and just talking to my constituents in Ward 3, it is an overwhelming response of not wanting the Gator Lake project to go through. In the earlier debate, they had said that they put out three different, or they were looking for bids from developers 3 different times, and no developer has jumped on that yet, right? Developers who are going to expand that housing, if we can't find somebody to volunteer to take on that project, that should tell us something. The land's not the best land to build on. Let's find a better use for it.
Thank you. Second question will come from our panelist.
Hi, my name is Braden Hoof. I'm a senior here at the Waseca Junior Senior High School. And my question is for all of you is, how do you feel about annexation?
And Ms. Riecke, this will go to you first.
Can you repeat that? It was really difficult to hear him.
How do you feel about annexation?
So I feel that in order for our city to grow, we do need to annex parts of what are not currently part of our city to bring those on. But it also means that we have to increase our infrastructure to be able to, hey, if we want you to be in our city, we need to provide you with items as well, such as, city water, city sewer, and that means our infrastructure needs to be there before we can do that. But I am in favor.
And Mr. Schlueter.
I'm also in favor of annexing. If you have an opportunity to bring somebody into the community that brings in some revenue for the city that we can help put towards our infrastructure and get that back up and running where it needs to be.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, how do you feel about annexation?
I feel it's incredibly important. As I've stated, we are kind of out of room for growth, and annexation would be a key part of that. The only thing that does kind of raise flags for me is the amount it would cost to do that because of the infrastructure and acquiring of all that. But if the constituents would be okay with the increased costs and burden to them in hope of long-term payout, then I would be for it.
And finally, Mr. Christensen.
Annexation, 100% for it. There is a cost, but it's an investment because you are going to gain housing, you're going to gain taxes, but you also have to put the sewer and water in and then take care of the roads. We don't really gain much in population because as we talk here, if we want new people to come to town, these people are here. So again, you can go around Clear Lake, you could go to the Highlands, you can go to Lakeview Estates, many possibilities to annex. You will need to pay for sewer and water. And that is the burden on the taxpayers that only we will pay for. You do a phased in annexation, and that will hopefully defray the cost over the course of the time. But this is a project that will take 10 or 15 years. Again, will not be a 2-year, 3-year, 4-year project. It's going to be 10 to 15 years. And so, again, for it 100%, we've got plenty of opportunities. There will be a cost. The hope is that the investment outweighs what it would be down the road.
Thank you. And Ms. Riecke, do you have a rebuttal to any of the comments you've heard by your opponents?
No.
Mr. Schlueter?
I do not.
All right. Mr. Wright?
Nope.
Mr. Christensen?
Don't so have so much a rebuttal. It's just we have a lot of houses that just outside the city limits. I'd love to have them in here because then they would pay our tax dollars. They would help contribute to our community. They do in a sense because they live just half a mile, 3/4 mile outside. But to annex some of the properties, you're going to have to go past our properties that are blank or empty that we should actually be adding to add more people. So again, there is an investment for annexation. It's just a matter of how you phase it in and how we've actually right now we've got small little parts in the community that we should annex immediately. We had one years ago that we let go because they wanted to do their leaves. And so even if we just do a phased in annexation where we could get small little parts, then maybe the rest of the people would get behind and get on board with going to the larger areas.
Thank you. Question number 3 will start with you, Mr. Wright. Should the city invest more tax dollars in expanding wastewater capacity necessary to allow larger businesses to open in Waseca? Why or why not?
Absolutely, they should, because as of right now, as been talked about here tonight, it's something that we need in order to grow. And much like the business that's currently here, ConAgra, they need wastewater treatment. And if we're going to grow or even annexation, we're talking about if we were to annex these just outside city limits houses and stuff like that, that's going to increase our wastewater, which would then kind of stifle, development of business, of new construction and things like that. So I'm in favor of doing that. It does come with a cost, but it is an investment into our future. And frankly, maybe it should have, maybe we should think about that when we're adding stuff on, is future-proofing things. And that's all I have.
Mr. Christensen, should the
All
city
for-
invest more tax dollars? Sorry.
No, go ahead. Say it again, please.
So should the city invest more tax dollars in expanding wastewater capacities necessary to allow larger businesses to open in Waseca? Why or why not?
Again, 100%. Wastewater is key. We had a meeting in April that a large owner of a building spoke that most of the businesses that have looked at his building needed the wastewater to function and could not based on capacities. Back in 2008, 2009, when we did the big dig and bonded for it, that was a way to spread the costs over 20 some years. And basically, we will find out in 2029 that will go off the tax rolls. So here again, bonding is a real key avenue to invest and use and spread the cost of that wastewater treatment plant over and above more people and more utilities. So,
Ms. Riecke.
Can you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Should the city invest more tax dollars in expanding wastewater capacities necessary to allow larger businesses to open in Waseca? Why or why not?
So our wastewater treatment facility needs to be up to par for us to be able to attract larger businesses. That means, yes, we need to invest. If we're not investing, then we can't grow. So I'm totally in favor of it because it also allows us to grow our housing. It's kind of hand in hand. But also we need to look at the rain water because that seems to be where our system has problems. When we have a large amount of water coming from rain, then we see the pumps come out and we're pumping into areas we don't necessarily want to be pumping that into. So maybe we're also looking at our storm drain system, not just our water treatment plant.
And Mr. Schlueter.
Repeat the question one time, please.
Sure. Should the city invest more tax dollars in expanding wastewater capacities necessary to allow larger businesses to open in Waseca? Why or why not?
I absolutely agree with that. I think that that investing in that is a big way to invest in our community. We need to bring businesses in. We need to bring big businesses in. We've lost Brown Printing. We lost now Itron. That's roughly 400 jobs there. That we have the workforce that is here. So if that's a way that we can provide jobs for people to stay here in the city, then I think that's a great investment.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, you have first rebuttal.
I'd like to expand on as what Ms. Riecke was talking about, the expansion of the water treatment plant, not only for economic development, but, when we get those heavy rains and it runs full capacity or over, and they end up having to pump into, storm water drains, things like that, stuff that ends up back in Clear Lake, which we've spent a large amount of tax dollars to rejuvenate. And I think it's it's very important to do for the wastewater treatment to expand, because when we do things like that, it's almost like we're taking away that little bit. You know, can't go to the lake. Kids can't go in there, swim, can't fish. You know, and then it's a bad taste in their mouth. So I think it's very, very important for the expansion of the wastewater treatment.
Mr. Christensen, your rebuttal.
No, I'm good.
Ms. Riecke, your rebuttal.
I'm good.
And Mr. Schlueter.
I'm good.
Thank you. The next question will also be asked by a panelist. And we'll start with Mr. Schlueter on this one.
Thank you. I'm here as a member of the Waseca Legislative Committee and the publisher of the Waseca County Pioneer. I am Eli Lutkins. Your question is, do you believe Waseca needs to grow? Why or why not? If so, what would your approach to growth be?
Yes, I would love to see Waseca grow. We have a great community. We have a great school system. And to watch that grow would be great. The way to do that, I believe, is to bring in those big businesses, make Waseca a place where people can come and earn a good living at one of these businesses. And to do that, we're going to need to invest into our infrastructure. It's going to take a little bit, but I think that in the long term, more business means more people. As more people come, we develop different housing and things like that. But I believe we start with businesses first.
And Ms. Riecke, to you.
I believe that, yes, Waseca needs to grow, and I am 100% for growth in Waseca. Do we bring housing first? Do we bring businesses first? It's really a hard decision. Knowing that we have lost a few of our larger employers, we do have the people right now to be able to support additional businesses coming in before we do look at the housing. But also, housing costs are just going up and up and up. And if we're going to be looking at building things, we need to seize the time so that we can be smart with our money rather than sitting back and waiting.
Mr. Christensen.
I'm going to have you ask the question again.
Sure.
Please, a little bit slower so I can grasp it.
Do you believe Waseca needs to grow? Why or why not? If so, what would your approach to growth be?
Waseca needs to grow 100%. It needs to spread out the tax base. I kind of have a little bit different philosophy as I'm looking at this. I listen to different people that talk about numerous people that come from different communities that stop in Waseca that wanted to possibly live here, wanted to move here. I think you need the housing. You need affordable housing. We need some apartments. If we're going to look at our workforce, if we're going to talk business, we need to look at what type of workforce. We need apartments. There are some people that just are not interested in owning a home, and I don't fault them for that. But I believe that by growing in that sense brings in people, brings in schools, brings in the kids for the families. But I don't know if I'm up for the big business. I really think that we've got people in the community that have a business at home that maybe are looking for something small to say, gosh, I have something that I could start with 2 people, 4 people, 6 people. To get a big business is going to cost lots of dollars, and it's going to be possible tax dollars. So this is where, again, I really truly believe that if we start small, we'd be surprised what we would be able to accomplish.
And Mr. Wright.
Waseca must grow. Mankato and Otana, they can't stop building over there, and they have the room for it. I think we need to grow as a city, and I think some of it comes down to giving tax incentives to large businesses and certain tax breaks for single family that wants to build their house and their family here in Waseca. A large tax break for a couple of years if they can promise to stay for multiple years after that, and things like that. I don't think it should be solely on the going after developers and things like that, trying to get them to build houses here for us. I think we should leave that up to the families, and yeah. that is my time.
Thank you. And Mr. Schlueter, you have the first rebuttal.
I think that right now, to build a house in Waseca, there's some lots over in Ward 3 that go for about $64,000. To build a house on that, you're looking at anywhere from $360,000, $380,000 to build a home. That's a lot of money. If we have jobs here that will help sustain income to afford a house like that, I think that's a great start.
And Mrs. Riecke, your rebuttal.
I'm good.
Mr. Christensen, your time for
We need
rebuttal.
lots. We need bigger lots. We need people. I kind of used the example years ago about affordable housing, and the state and different entities had different examples of affordable house for somebody new that was a young couple at $30,000 that built a $150,000 house and then could not afford it. What we really need is the new lots to open up so that people that can afford the houses, and there are plenty of people that can afford those houses, so that they would move out of their house and somebody else could move into their affordable house. So there is numerous opportunities in Waseca of old homes, newer homes, and brand new homes that people can move into and still afford with no problems.
And Mr. Wright.
I think we should really focus on the housing, single-family housing, rather than apartments and things like that. Just given the state of the apartment complexes that we do have here in town, they're not the best. They're not well managed, things like that. They're very. They're cash cows for these landlords and stuff. And affordable housing, someone comes in, builds an apartment complex, rents $1,200 to $1,300 to $1,600 if you want a garage. I mean, yeah, is that cheaper than owning a home? Sure, but I wouldn't really necessarily call it affordable. And I think we should really focus on expansion, getting lots, larger lots, and giving tax incentives to families that want to build new homes.
Thank you. The last committee question, we'll start with Mr. Christensen. We see other communities such as New Ulm, St. Peter, Mankato, and Blue Earth benefiting and thriving from a local option sales tax. In 2016, Waseca voters defeated the proposal by less than 50 votes. Is this something you are in favor of bringing up to the voters again when we see the state moratorium lifted? And what would you like to see the funds used for?
I would be in favor for it. We need to, though, have a guaranteed approach of what we want. I'm really not a fan of a community center or stuff like that. If you could do roads, if you could do utilities, even if you could put it toward housing. Right now, you look at the cost, everybody says, oh, it's so much money. We've talked about this for a couple of years about it's half a cent or a penny more on $1 or $2, whatever. So you start adding up what the extra is and nobody notices it. So why shouldn't Waseca take advantage of it? The county, based on the state, passed a wheelage tax, $10 on your license tabs, and nobody's screamed, nobody's yelled, everybody's paid it because it's part of a way to take care of our roads and take care of our investment that we have. And so our sales option tax, I think, is great if we have an approach and a plan to where we want to put it that would hopefully offset and maybe save some tax dollars, but also to help grow the community.
Mr. Christensen, do you have an idea of where you would like to see those funds?
Where I'd like to go? Yeah. Well, right now, if we look at our CIP, it would be mainly roads.
And Mr. Wright, are you in favor of presenting a local option sales tax to voters? And if so, what would you like to see it used for?
Yes. But I'd say limit it more or less. Maybe do it with fuel or things like that. Groceries are already expensive enough. Last thing we need is a higher, when we're swiping our debit card at Walmart, because it's the only place to get groceries in this town. I don't think that's really quite fair to the people of Waseca. Granted, a lot of people do use that from neighboring cities and things like that and towns. If we did do it, I'd like to see it go solely towards infrastructure and expansion. That is the main goal of what I hope to accomplish if elected is expansion of the town. It needs to grow. And if we have to pass a sales tax or to do that, then so be it.
And Mr. Schlueter, are you in favor of local option sales tax, and what would you like to see the funds used for?
Yes, I am. I think there's great benefits, and we have tested, times with the sales tax. You get people from other communities coming in and spending money here, so it's not just us that is paying into that. So using those funds, I think we prioritize what we need most. Right now it's infrastructure. We can't really grow too much without improving that. So I would make sure to allocate those funds for infrastructure first and foremost.
And Mrs. Riecke.
So, like everybody, we don't all shop here in Waseca. We go to other communities and they're already taxing us. So why not utilize that optional sales tax and gain additional funds from those people that are coming and shopping in our town? It also gives us the opportunity then to be able to offset some of our own taxes and be able to grow, especially our infrastructure. And if we're going to do this, that's where our money needs to go to. And because without an infrastructure to support growth, we can't grow.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen, you're up first for a rebuttal.
Well, I do want to say gas, groceries, clothing would not be taxed. So, it's not sales tax now. So it's basically buying products, buying supplies, buying, if you buy lumber, buy whatever. So it's got to be structured correctly so we can get the most out of it so that we could save our taxpayers, because like the other opponents have said, is that other people are going to pay this going elsewhere. Why shouldn't they pay for us? So.
Mr. Wright, your opportunity.
No, thank you. Nothing.
Mr. Schlueter?
I have nothing.
And Mrs. Riecke?
Nothing at this time.
Very good. That ends that portion up. We're going to take a small break while the panelists collect the questions from the audience.
Once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd please fill out your cards, we'll send panelists and members of the committee around to pick those up. I also would like to mention to all of you, although this is the last of our debates coming up in November and December, the Chamber will be hosting a State of the City, a State of the County, and the State of the Education. Thank you. Okay, the questions have been chosen and we'll begin. Ann?
Thank you. We'll start with you, Mr. Schlueter. Should you not be elected to City Council, how will you continue to stay active in our community? Are you willing to sit on any of our boards and commissions with the various vacancies that they have?
Yes, absolutely. I think that if I'm not elected, I would continue to be involved with the city and if I can help guide and push some of my influence through some of the other vacancies, I would be more than happy to do that.
Thank you. Mrs. Riecke?
If I were not elected, I would be looking at different vacancies that are available that would meet my interest and that I would benefit from being on those committees, any way that I'm able to serve Waseca.
And Mr. Christensen?
I would. As I've learned, Waseca Arts Council being treasurer is not really tied to the city. They told me I have a lifelong term, so I guess the only way out of it is to move to greener pastures, I guess. The Parks Board is part of my position as council member, so that would get alleviated in that sense. But there's really a lot of committees. There's the Charter, there's the Parks, there's the EDA. I think we still have an EDA opening, don't quote me. But every year, in January, there's always the opportunity to apply, as that's when terms are ended and get to be new. So I would love to stay involved, and sometimes those ideas, as they move forward, can then get to the council, get to different people, and promote what they would like to get done.
And Mr. Wright?
If not elected, I would look seriously at joining one of the committees, much like the Economic Development Association, anything to help steer the city into a path of prosperity.
Thank you. There is an opportunity for rebuttal. Would you like to take that, Mr. Schlueter?
Thank you.
Mrs. Riecke, Mr. Christensen,
Pass.
and Mr. Wright.
Pass.
Our next question will come from our panel.
All right, who are we starting with, Ann?
And we'll start with Mr. Wright.
All right, Mr. Wright, we'll start with you. What services would you be willing to cut in the future in order to make the city balance its budget?
That's a tough one. No one likes budget cuts. And that would really take a good overview of the budget to see where there is fat to be trimmed. I think with the services we have currently, it's really hard to say without really looking at it. But I'm not closed-minded to the idea of cutting, as long as it's not at the detriment of the city's forward progression.
Mr. Christensen.
Services to cut. We have mosquito spraying, you have the leaf pickup, you have brush pickup. Actually, one of the services that I might cut or ask for more revenue is the extra activities that our staff do on weekends. As most people probably don't know, as our staff work on weekends or holidays, whatever, they're paid extra wages. And so when we have the Marching Band Classic, when we have 4th of July, or we have different activities, those services are not charged to those activities. And so that would be a way to then ask them to contribute. Otherwise, that would be something that you would have significant savings on based on what activities would go about. So I'm not really for cutting mosquito spraying. I know one year we had cut it and it actually cost us more to get it back because it was a bad year. There isn't, you almost have to look at what a community does. Snow plowing. Do we want to go without that? Lawn mowing, parks, those services are huge. And so I wouldn't be in favor of those, but like I said, what my answer was about activities.
Thank you. And Ms. Riecke, what cuts are you willing to make?
Making cuts are always difficult just because our community has come to expect certain things from us. And if we take those away, then, we also hear from our community members about those things that were taken away. But you also have to look at, can we really afford it? Obviously, we're not going to cut those things that are vital for the growth of our community. But, we do have areas that we could look at and change. Do we need to go around a couple times, picking up leaves? There's other ways for us as homeowners to pitch in and make sure that those, the leaves, the brush, are taken care of. Parks, do we need to always have them mowed twice a week? Sometimes letting that grass grow a little bit longer is actually beneficial for our insects and the pollinators. So, we can look at other ways of cutting money as well, not necessarily eliminating all services or any services.
And Mr. Schlueter.
Making cuts is extremely hard, and right off the bat, you want to say no. I'm not going to make any cuts. I'm going to try to find money in other places to move forward. I think that Waseca runs pretty lean the way that it is right now, and you have people doing jobs that or their job descriptions have kind of grown a little bit, and they're taking on other work because there's been cuts made already. That's when mistakes start happening. That's when people are overworked, underpaid. So when it comes down to it, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the brush and leaf pickup if we can make some cuts there, as beneficial as it is to some of our community members that maybe can't make it to the dump and stuff like that, maybe that's where we could start looking to maybe make some cuts.
Mr. Wright, you have first rebuttal.
Pass.
And Mr. Christensen?
No, I'm going to pass.
Ms. Riecke?
Pass.
And Mr. Schlueter?
No, thank you.
All right. This next question, we will start with Ms. Riecke. Waseca is in need of housing, single-family, apartments, and senior housing. Where would you propose a housing development go in Waseca?
So right now, when we look at our where people can go grocery shopping, where people can get, anything, it's all in the northern part of our city. So if we're looking at like apartments or single-family homes, that area makes the most sense because that's where all of those options are for them. So then those that don't have transportation, it's easier to access. However, we also have land to the south of our community here that can be utilized. And if we start building housing south, then possibility of having our businesses, as well move south. We also have area on our east side of town that there's opportunity there. So really it's looking at what the area is and what the services are in that area that we can either already utilize or we can possibly bring.
And Mr. Schlueter?
Can you repeat the
Absolutely.
question?
Waseca is in need of housing, single family, apartment, and senior housing. Where would you propose a housing development go in Waseca?
I think the northwest side northwest side of town, northeast side of town is a good place. It's a safe place to expand. I think our current apartments or senior housing, those definitely need to be looked at, updated, and if we have an opportunity to build more, definitely do that. I'm extremely concerned about building on the southeast side of town, and I think that we should definitely explore all avenues before we go down a venture that we're not going to be able to get out of.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, where would you propose a housing development in Waseca?
The east-northeast side of town, topographically, is probably going to be the easiest expansion for developments and things like that, due to its more flat landscape and things like that. Being kind of close to, the more commercial side of things, Walmart and things like that. We have the Gator Lake, which poses a development, but is it ideal? No. In the further east we go, we kind of run into other problems, like, we have, there's Goose Lake Park, there's what used to be Frederick's Cattle Barn. So, engulfing we'd have to build on the other side of the Highlands, which would be at a large cost. So I think the northeast side of town would be the best way or the best place for housing expansion.
And Mr. Christensen?
So my wife and I took a drive around town to kind of look to see where you would develop. There's a couple lots here and there's two here and, there's some empty property. And as we were just talking about how we would do infrastructure, northwest, you would have to spend numerous dollars to put sewer and water in. If you go northeast, we don't own the land, and there's wetlands, there's mitigation, and you're getting further away from the treatment plant. And if you look at southwest, it's owned by the college and the prison. Southeast is the most logical place to go, as number one, city owns it, and number two, it is close to the highway. And if we're looking at a diverse workforce that may not work in Waseca but might work out of town, they're still bringing back dollars from different communities to back into Waseca to pay taxes. I'm all for the apartment building next to Walmart. I do think that's a good use with the schools and with Walmart. And we need apartments. We've not had a new building in 25 years. That's 2000. 1999, we have not had a new building. Southside is a remodeled building, but we've not had a new apartment building in 25 years.
Ms. Riecke, you have the first opportunity at rebuttal.
No rebuttal.
Mr. Schlueter?
No, thank you.
Mr. Wright?
No.
And Mr. Christensen?
I want to say again, Gator Lake, 100%. The apartments next to Walmart, 100%. It is an investment in our community for housing that we speak about. If we need housing, take a drive around and see where you'd like to put it. Because then when you ask the question, how much is it going to cost for sewer and water, that might change your outlook on what we need to do.
Thank you. We'll start this question with Mr. Christensen. One of the candidates mentioned revitalization of downtown. Do you believe having the downtown as a historical district is a positive or negative? If it is positive, is this a positive as if it pigeon-toes the building owners or and what they can do?
Well, it is a positive to a point. I know I've been in different communities that had those designations and they're able to fund what they need to be done. We as a city then would have to make available dollars to help them out. I know we have empty buildings in town. People have talked about talking to business owners. I have had conversations with business owners. I've looked at a couple buildings and the answers have been not for sale, don't call me again. So the question to say we need it, we do. It's just that we're going to have to be very viable on what people are able to afford and what they can do and the designation of what it will bring people to Waseca.
Mr. Wright?
Can you repeat it?
Absolutely. Do you believe having the downtown as a historic district is a positive or a negative? If it is positive, how is this a positive as it pigeon-toes the building owners on what they can do?
It could be a positive. I think that's very long-sighted. There's a lot of other things I think that we should focus on. Seeing Owatonna's downtown, Northfield's downtown, it does bring tourist dollars in, and I think the kind of thing that we're kind of stuck with is two very busy roads going straight through. I mean, one of them's a state highway. I don't think it's up for, I don't think it'd be a good call at this time. Maybe later in the future, sure, but right now, I don't think that'd be a good use of taxpayer dollars.
And Mr. Schlueter?
As much as I believe in, the history of the city and how important that is, I think it does pose some negative complications for business owners and, and the burden that it's going to be for us as taxpayers. I think that there's ways that we can can keep the history alive with our buildings without imposing the extra burden on the business owners as well as the taxpayers.
And Ms. Riecke?
So having our downtown labeled as a historical area, it does pigeon-toe people because they're not able to make things look the way they want their business to look. We all loved growing up, going down, seeing, the buildings. I can still drive down and, okay, this is what was here and this was what was here. But as businesses come and go out of our downtown, we need to also be able to allow them to make those buildings their own. We would have areas, obviously, that, maybe a business is going to come in and it would be great for them to just update the current look. that's there. Just give it a fresh look. But then I look at, right next to the daily, no, it's not daily grind anymore. But, we just completely changed the whole front of that, and that's appropriate for that type of business. So having those options for our businesses that want to open up downtown is important. So a historical feature making it impossible to do that, I do not think is a good thing.
Mr. Christensen, you have opportunity for rebuttal.
Again, I think it's all good discussion. It comes down to dollars and cents. I do think people travel to see different downtowns. I know that I've traveled to see different downtowns, and so we just need to be conscious of the business owners. But I do think it's possible with the right funding, with the right people. There's a lot of people that I think would love to do different things downtown that would bring back some of that quality, and we just need to find the right investment.
Mr. Wright?
Pass.
Mr. Schlueter?
No, thank you.
And finally, Mrs. Riecke.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our questions, and we will commence with closing statements. This is your final opportunity on this platform to persuade your voters as to why you are the best candidate. Each candidate will have a minute and a half, and we will start with Ms. Riecke.
Once again, I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank the Waseca Area Chambers for taking on this debate. I'm here as a member of the community who has a shared vision of many. And I'm willing to work to be the voice of your community for Ward 3 and bring those concerns to the council and work on those issues so that everybody's voice is heard.
Thank you. Mr. Schlueter.
Again, I want to thank everybody for showing up and helping put this together and for the community coming out and watching us. In the time that I've spent out talking to the community in Ward 3, it's been great. I've got to know a lot of different people, a lot of different ideas and opinions of what they want to see happen here in Waseca. And I think as a city council member, that's our job, is we're the voice for them. So I have some ideas of what I would like to see, but more realistically, I want to know what my ward wants, and that's what I'll push forward for them.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
Again, thank everyone for coming and those who are watching. Waseca is a Lakota term for land of provisions, prosperity, and that is what I'm about. That is what I will strive for if voted in. You could be confident that I will only act in the best interest of the taxpayers in the expansion of the city. That is all I have. Thank you.
And finally, Mr. Christensen.
Again, would like to say thank you to all for coming out on a nice night to watch this debate. My votes on the city council over the last 4 years reflect my values of fiscal responsibility, community growth, and sustainable development. Throughout my term, I have consistently supported initiatives that promote economic development while maintaining responsible budget management. I've advocated for projects that enhance our community's infrastructure, such as housing developments and public facilities, while carefully considering their long-term impacts on taxpayers. Each decision has been guided by a commitment to transparent governance and the best interests of Waseca residents. My voting record demonstrates support for balanced growth, including both residential and industrial development, while preserving the quality of life that makes our community unique. This approach has guided my support for strategic investments in our city's future, from infrastructure improvements to recreational facilities, always with careful consideration of both immediate needs and long-term benefits. I respectfully encourage you to exercise your right to vote in the upcoming election on or before November 5th. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration.
Thank you all for joining us tonight at the Waseca Votes City Council debates. Candidates, we are so grateful for your involvement. It is because of you this series is a success, and thank you to everyone behind the scenes to help make this a great event. This debate will be available on both the Chamber and Schools YouTube channels as well as the PEG channel. We hope the evening provided valuable insight to each of the candidates' platforms and vision for our community. Engaged citizens like you are the foundation of a strong democracy. Be sure to vote in the election day or before. On behalf of the Chamber of Waseca Schools and all tonight and our participants, thank you and have a great evening.